So moving on, having a battery is not enough to deliver a system, of course. I've got 3 different types of approaches for managing those batteries that I'd like to go through with you today. First of all, traditional off-grid. Now, what I mean by this is simply there are companies who manufacture battery inverters who've been doing this for a long time. The off-grid market is a market that's been in Australia for a very long time. In fact, my father was using square wave inverters way back in the 80s to do off-grid systems. And square wave inverters, if you haven't run into them, have this tremendous ability to destroy anything electronic. So it's wonderful that we have, pure sine wave inverters these days. The battery inverter manufacturers that have been in this industry for so many years have lots of systems in the field, and they have proven themselves to be highly reliable. And that's obviously a key consideration in off-grid. Also, these manufacturers tend to be able to build systems of all different shapes and sizes, single phase, 3-phase, etc., but training's definitely required to do a good job with these manufacturers. Now, when I say traditional off-grid, I'm not suggesting that their products aren't perfectly suited for on-grid operation, and that's primarily what we're talking about today, simply to explain that's where they've come from. A couple of examples. I'm sure you're familiar with all 3 of these, Schneider, SMA and Selectronic. People involved in the off-grid space often choose one of these 3 to build their systems out of. Hybrid inverters and batteries. Now, this is a category that's basically new. You go back a few years, there was no such thing as a hybrid inverter. And what I'm suggesting here is that this is an inverter where we've taken solar management, the solar inverter function, and battery management, the battery inverter charger function, and effectively merged it all together and put it into one enclosure. This tends to be, from what I've seen, the products so far have come from manufacturers who have, in the solar inverter space, wanting to enter the energy storage space. And then we have even a newer breed of product, hybrid batteries, which actually take the battery bit, the actual storage of the energy, and combine into that one enclosure the ability for that unit to charge and discharge itself. And an example is Enphase's upcoming AC battery, where in the one enclosure you've got the battery storage, but it just plugs into AC and it will do the inversion and the charging for you. So a couple of examples, SunGrow and SolarX both make quite popular single-phase hybrid inverters. And we're also seeing some other products come through, such as the SolarWatt MyReserve, which you'll hear a little bit more about later, and the Tesla Powerwall. And then thirdly, energy storage systems. And so we've gone from basically having 3 major components. With the traditional off-grid manufacturers, we've got the solar inverter, the battery inverter, and the batteries. And these are separate. And then with the hybrid systems, we've got the hybrid inverter and the batteries. So sort of 2 things. And now with energy storage systems, 1 thing. Everything's in the one box. You've got your solar inverter, your batteries there. And this is more of an appliance approach. And I think customers can be easily confused, in my experience, and they're easily confused even by kilowatt hours and kilowatts and solar. Once we get into batteries, it potentially gets even more confusing, and confusion equals you're probably not going to make the sale. So we need to be mindful of that. I think having one box with one badge on the front certainly keeps things simple in the customer's mind. The flip side is that you have less flexibility with the configurations that are possible generally with these products. A couple of examples, Samsung have an all-in-one, and Bosch has had a range over the last couple of years.